Good morning, everybody. January 16th, 2022. Got a devotional for you today from our Bible readings. Today's readings were from Matthew chapter 6, verse 25 to 34, Acts chapter 9, verse 20 to 43, Psalm 16, and Genesis 36. As I was reading through in the end, this portion of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6, where he starts talking about money and then ends up talking about worry. This is a passage that we quote very often, we talk about, because Jesus talks about how worthless worrying is in this passage. What has worry ever added a single thing to your life? And, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough of its own. And we use it to talk about why worry is a waste of time, why not just why we shouldn't worry, but why worry is ineffective. And while we all do it, it doesn't work. But I think what we fail to talk enough about is the solution to worrying is in there. And we use this verse a lot. We memorize this verse a lot. I remember memorizing as a kid. The way I memorized as kids is seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you. Here in the New Living I'm reading, it says, seek the kingdom of God above all else. Not just first. It's above everything else. It's kind of mean the same thing, but it's a good way to phrase it for us. It's not just numerically, though. I got to make sure it's number one on the list. No, we're seeking it, above everything. Not just the first in order, but it's the first in prominence, first in power in our life. And then to live righteously, to seek his righteousness, doesn't just mean to seek out how God is right. It means to seek how to live it out. And if you're living righteously, I believe what that's saying is when we're seeking the kingdom of God first, the things of the kingdom of the world we don't worry so much about. When we're living the way that God has called us to live, we have less to worry about. And then he's saying, and then he'll give you everything you need. All these things will be added unto you. We don't find what we need in God when we're not really looking for it in him. The solution to worry is to live in and seek the one in whom there is no question, in whom there is no changing, in whom there is no wavering. We don't have to worry when we're seeking the kingdom of God above everything else. We don't have to worry when we're living life the way that God has called us to, above the way the world calls us to live it. Because then we found what we need in him. Is Jesus saying you don't have any food today that you shouldn't be concerned about it? No, of course not. And he's not just saying trust God and go out in your lawn and the manna will be there. But I think we've all been in those situations where, we didn't have the answer. We didn't have the means to provide for ourselves. And somehow God still took care of us. Sometimes we give credit to others. We call it coincidence. We want to explain it away. But in those moments where we trust God rather than trust our worry, when we seek God rather than just seek answers to a problem, doesn't mean you don't have food, you shouldn't go to the grocery store. If you have that means we thank God. Hey, you've given me the means in seeking you out and living for you. I've got the ways to go to the store and buy the food. That's God providing. It's God giving you what you need. Some of you may have all those things that you need right now, and this may not seem important, but you still have worry. You can be fed, and you can have clothes, and you can have the roof over your head, and there's still something in your life that is just burdening you. And maybe seeking God is seeking the right perspective. Is God saying, what you're worried about isn't as big a deal as you think it is. What you're worried about isn't an essential in life. It isn't one of the things that, it's not a thing to survive. If you don't have food, you should worry about it. But the list of what we worry about isn't really comparable to having food to eat or clothes to wear or a roof over our head. They're not the same category, and yet they consume us. They consume our mind, they consume our hearts. And that's when we allow worry to decide what we're seeking. We allow worry to decide what we're thinking about. We allow worry to decide what our hearts and our minds are concentrated on. And it's not just Jesus saying, hey, don't worry about it. God's going to take care of it. No, what he's saying is, when you worry about it, it begins to change who you are. It changes your perspective. And that's not what your perspective should be on. It doesn't mean you shouldn't care that you don't have food. It doesn't mean that you don't care that work's going terrible, that I got this problem with my kid, and or I have this medical concern, or whatever it is that you're worried about. It doesn't mean that those things don't matter. They do. What it means is those things should not dictate and control what your life and your heart are concentrated on. When they become your focus, God is not. When they become your focus, you can't receive what God has for you, because your hearts and minds are consumed with someone else. You're seeking something else instead of Him. So challenge you today to look at your life and to look at what you're worried in and ask yourself, not just am I seeking God answers, not, I'm praying to God and asking for Him help. No. Has that problem, has that pain, has that trouble, has it become the focus of your life? Is it taken over your mind? Is it all that you think about? Is it taking over your emotions? It's dictating how you feel. It's depressing you. It's hurting you. It's all this. Well, then you're not seeking the kingdom of God. And you're not living life the way that God has called you to live. And I know, I'm not saying that because it's so easy to do. It's not. I know. I do the same thing. We all make this mistake. And what Jesus is saying is not saying don't do that. Jesus is saying what you're doing doesn't work. And your mind and your heart and your life will be consumed by these things if you let them. So seek the kingdom of God and let Him consume your life, and then you'll find what you need. You'll find the answers. You'll find the joy that you can't find. You'll find the peace that you can't find. You'll find the answers that you can't find through worry. Trust in Him, seek Him today, and find what you're looking for.